Hello everyone and welcome once again to Royal Grown Radio. I'm your host Michael Beck, joined as always by the fantastic Rick Elliott.
Hey, how's it going?
And we are being welcomed here today at Rising Source Farms by the fantastic Oliver. He's going to give us a tour around the facility, show us what's going on, show us how they're creating some of the finest cannabis in the world and mixed light greenhouses out here in Briceland, California. Thanks for having us, Oliver.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. We've been talking about this for a hot minute, so it's nice that it finally came together, man.
Yep, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really exciting for me. We've never met. I've been vaguely aware of your brand, seen it out there over the years, and I'm a huge fan of Briceland and the entire, Honeydew to Wilder Ridge stretch that we're on here in this very unique part of the world and of Humboldt County even. Driving up here this morning through the mist and the clouds rising off the mountains was a little slice of heaven and majestic. So we really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to come and share what you do with those at home.
Yeah, you guys came at a good time between the hectic storms we've had this winter. So luckily there's no snow on the ground right now.
Wow, it's been a doozy, hasn't it?
Yeah. And I think what people don't understand, especially in the greenhouse setting, is that our environment's always changing and we're constantly adapting our practices like every day, depending on the outside weather. So it's definitely been a challenge this winter. Luckily we've got these greenhouses set up in such a way that we're able to control as much of the internal environment as possible through, the lighting and the heating and the dehumidification. But we're basically just fighting the outside elements. So
yeah, I think that's a common misconception of people when they're like, oh, they've got automated greenhouses, they just work. Well, no, you've got the tools, you've got the equipment, you've got all of the things to do the job, but you still have to actually maintain and apply your skill set and understanding of your plants, where they're at in their cycle, where the weather's at, all of these things, and use those skills to build a system. Right?
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, to start kind of at the beginning, this farm was originally a seasonal operation.
Okay.
And these are farm tech greenhouses that we retrofitted actually. So, probably the single most important thing was the lighting. We got 54 Fluence Vipers in here, super awesome LEDs. I've been lucky enough to be on the LED hype basically for the last, 6 or so years.
Wow, way ahead of the curve, really.
Yeah, I mean, through my previous partnership and business, we had exposure early on, and I got to mess around with, numerous brands, probably half a dozen brands.
That's awesome.
And Fluence has kind of, for me, risen to the top, especially in the greenhouse setting, just because of their, streamlined profile and the way that they kind of integrate into the space. But the light's obviously huge, especially during the winter months when the sun isn't as bright and we don't have any as much hours of sunlight. And then a big one for us was this cover here, which is twin wall polycarbonate. A lot of these really high-end greenhouses are using similar material. This one's called Solex, and it's really awesome because it's semi-rigid. It allows us to kind of go around, these rounded parts of the greenhouse and actually secure it to the frame. So you can think about that almost like cardboard, where there's an air gap actually between the inside and outside, which allows for an R value, which obviously helps with trapping heat and
just regulating temperature in
exactly
general, yeah.
Exactly. So lights, Solex, 300,000 BTU heater, 2 Quest 506s. Been changing my cultivation style just with kind of this year-round operation. I've basically stepped down in pot size. I've been running Royal Gold since basically the beginning of my cultivation career in Arcata.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, basement mix, Tupper, King's mix.
The whole gamut, I like
the
it.
whole gamut. down at the nursery facility, cocoa for the moms. And we basically settled with Tupper here just to really maintain that control. We're trying to control the environment, and I'm also just trying to control like our irrigation strategy.
Yep.
And so I know exactly what I'm feeding the plants. We're down into the 3-gallon pots now because I'm just really wanting, a faster dry back or dry out, and just make sure that the plants are getting a little bit of food every day. So.
Well, it seems like you're really doing all the right things to control the humidity and control the environment from the cultivation standpoint as well as the install. I'm really impressed by, the twin wall polycarb, because I'm imagining, especially with the lighter medium and controlled irrigation, that's helping your condensation and the moisture issues that come with that heat gap, right?
Right. Yeah, so we're not forming as much condensation on the walls. We're basically limiting the actual amount of soil or media in the greenhouse, so it's not holding as much water. So we're trying not to add as much water into the greenhouse, which really helps on days like today because it's raining and it's cloudy and the sun's not out and our exhaust fans aren't turning on all the time. So really the only air being pulled out of the greenhouse or moisture being pulled out of the greenhouse is through dehumidification. You know what I'm saying? So And I'm learning. I'm just learning and adapting and changing, and I've done it all. I've done beds. I've done full-term, massive 10-foot plants. I've done indoors, and this is really kind of what I'm passionate about now, because the quality that we're getting out of these greenhouses is just, I think that it's really the best there is, because you're getting, obviously, the natural sunlight and some of these, natural environmental conditions that influences the plants. But then you're also getting the indoor effect. You're getting the lights, and you're getting, this like highly diffused sunlight through the twin wall polycarbonate. And it's really just making for like exceptional cannabis.
It's awesome.
I have to really just wonder how much better the terpene profiles are than traditional indoor. You're starting to see all this research coming out about full sun and greenhouse having subterpenes and terpenes that don't even exist in a lot of indoor flower. But when you create a situation like this where you're getting those benefits of the actual sunlight and that complete spectrum, but also the control of the humidity to prevent pests and all the things that come with that ambient humidity that just make life difficult, it's really got to give you kind of the best of both worlds, right?
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
It's the best of both worlds, and it's also as a grower, as a farmer, it's putting you almost to that test where you have to deal with everything. You're dealing with, it's not just a straight indoor controlled climate. In order to get that premium product that you're going to get from a mixed light, you are dealing with everything as far as just insects and mildews and molds and all that stuff that are somewhat uncontrollable. And I love what you said earlier about that you're still learning, because that's something that it's almost just like a missed title when you say I've been here for a while, I've been doing this, or obviously the classic master grower or anything. It's nice to hear the humbleness and understanding that, like, in order to do this properly and to be in it long term, it's always going to be a learning process, right? Everything's always changing, and I feel like that's like the number one key to success in this business is to like just understand that we're going to constantly be going like this and learning and sharing the knowledge and growing as a community of growers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree. Like, maybe even life in general is just growing, evolving, adapting, and changing. And this industry has been like a roller coaster.
Hell yeah.
And so like I'm just happy to be here, for one, and to be putting out like just really high quality product. Like, people are really seeking out our product. I will shout out my brother Jason at Ridgeline Farms, my partner here, and we're rocking with some of his in-house strains. Yep. Trying to build his reputation and some brand loyalty, and also really educate the consumer, because I think there is this misconception, not so much up in Northern California, but definitely as you go into the heavily populated city areas where, indoor is better.
Sure.
And I think it's mainly just the visual. I think most people go strictly off the visual. They're like, wow, this one's really frosty and beautiful. While this sun grown over here, it doesn't look quite as good. It might smell as good, it might kind of make me feel the same way. But the beauty, like we kind of were saying, of the mixed light is you just get the best of both worlds. Like our product that we're producing just has that indoor characteristics.
Yeah.
But it's been kissed by the sun, and it has, Jason and I, last year we weren't able to because we didn't line up with the strains we were growing. But our intention is to cultivate some full sun greenhouse weed at his farm up in Alder Point, and do the same here, and do the comparison. Is there a difference in terpene profile and THC and all these things, which I think there will be regardless, just from variances in environment.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to see if there's like large gaps just because we're running the lights and everything like that. So
I'm glad you brought up Jason. He's done a fantastic job. Obviously, branding. He's been in Forbes magazine. I mean, he's done a great job. He's obviously done a fantastic job just putting out good quality flower, because he's won Emerald Cups and stuff like that. I had a conversation with him recently, and he's obviously been doing this for a while. I mean, he's probably second, third generation ganja farmer here in Humboldt County, and he mentioned you in the way where he loves working with you because of the energy you have. You're not coming from a place of being burned out. You're still passionate. You get up in the morning and you bring this level of excitement to what you do, which to somebody who's maybe been in it for a little bit longer and seen that roller coaster ride for a little bit longer, especially going back to him being a child here in these hills, with all the craziness that went down back then. That's something that I love, because that was something that I picked up from you the second I met you, is that your level of passion, and you go to work every day with a smile and you're excited about what's ahead of you. And I was really happy to hear that, and I can understand how beautiful that chemistry is for the two of you guys to work together.
Yeah, and I try my best. I feel like every day you got to come with that attitude that's like, hey, we're here living and breathing, we should be thankful. I got kids. I got an 8-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. I spend most of my time at the farm. I try to balance my life between the farm and family. But, it's super important to be positive. And I think mine and Jason's relationship is really strong because, he takes kind of that old school mentality. And he's like the poster child for Humboldt County. Definitely Southern Humboldt,
sure.
And I'm getting a little older here, but I take kind of like that young energy and have had a background in science, which I apply to this, and have worked with some of the biggest brands in the cannabis space, and have toured all over the country, gone to $10 million, $50 million facilities. I've been through it all, so I've kind of been able to take that old school philosophy and that new age thinking and evolution and changing and all that stuff and apply it to like our day-to-day and our cultivation.
That's awesome. It's important.
That's amazing, and that leads me to a question I love to ask all farmers, because there are so many different paths to landing where we are today. Like, what's kind of the origin story of Rising Source? How did you fall into Humboldt County, Briceland, landing at this farm and, with these partners? Has it been a lifetime for you? Is it something you found through your teen years? Like, how did we get here today?
Yeah, so, cannabis has always been a big part of my life since I was an adolescent. I grew up just down in Marin County, so just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. My mom has been a yoga teacher for 45 years, and my dad taught karate, and they lived in Sausalito on a houseboat, and, they had kids, and it's kind of like
You're one of those. I pass those houseboats all the time. Like, man, what a life. That's awesome.
It's kind of like the hippies out of the Haight-Ashbury moved to Marin, and you got Phil Lesh and Bob Weir and all this stuff. So I had a really amazing childhood, and I really started using cannabis as an adolescent. I was, not the best teenager.
It's a common thread.
Had very little ambition to go to college, but through kind of trial and error, actually made it through junior college and went to UC Santa Cruz.
Right on.
And at UC Santa Cruz, I studied environmental science. I really focused on ecology. I realized that, I had odd and end jobs working construction, but I realized that I wanted to do something I was going to be passionate about. And in Santa Cruz, I linked up with a good friend of mine, Danny, and his mom was a medical doctor. And she was super cool. She let him, basically grow in a bedroom, and he kind of paid the bills at the house. And that was really my first exposure to cultivation. That was back in like 2007, 2008, and graduated college and worked a few environmental consulting jobs up here, working on the Eel River. We did a bunch of freshwater ecology, salmon surveys, frog surveys, and kind of just fell in love with the natural environment up here more than anything.
It's easy to do.
Yeah.
Happened to all of us.
Surfer, just avid surfer, just surfed my whole life. Obviously no kids, no real responsibilities.
Right.
And I kind of just got thrown into the lifestyle up here and, started working on a few farms. And, I think in 2011 or so, was able to kind of secure my first indoor cultivation up in Greenwood Heights, actually.
Oh yeah.
So
Neyland, yeah.
Neyland area. So, basically every house on the block had an indoor up there.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of started growing indoors and was making a decent amount of money and realized that there wasn't a lot of money in the environmental world. But I was still active. I'm one of the partners at Northern Nights Music Festival.
Right on.
Excellent.
The founders, Peter and Andrew, are my close friends. I actually went to school with Peter, helped with all the, environmental permitting, and I still do all the water quality and sampling at the festival. And so, we're going on
Andrew
our...
down at Boonville Farms, right?
Yeah, and Andrew's down
Yeah.
at Boonville.
Yep.
And I was actually a part of Boonville early on in its infancy as well. But it's interesting. Like a lot of my friends from Marin have ended up here, not necessarily through Humboldt State or Cal Poly Humboldt, whatever it is now, but we had like Northern Nights and the beautiful area and rivers and ocean, and I was growing weed and able to support myself. And I realized that I was super passionate about cultivation because I could apply a lot of the biology and my understanding of just natural functions to growing.
Yeah.
And I think that might have been around the time when I met Rick for the first time. I can't recall now.
There's several years for sure already.
Yeah. And, like most people, I was part of a big operation in Lolita that got busted pre-legalization.
It's funny, I didn't know that.
The glass houses
Oh,
under
yeah.
the glass.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that either.
Invested a lot of time into it. I'm going to leave some names out, but had some falling outs with some of the people there, and at that point knew that I really wanted to be in a legal space. I didn't want to kind of do the illegal black market thing because I was getting ready to have my first child, and I basically worked for a long time and invested a lot of energy and money and had nothing to show for it. And that was when I kind of linked back up with Peter, actually. And we all went in on a property just over the hill here in Old Briceland. And that was our first outdoor cultivation. It was only 7,000 square feet or so, but it was, kind of getting our feet wet in the outdoor space, legal as we could be up until that point. And I think we ran that for 3 years, went on to purchase One Log House.
Which is where I met you.
Okay, so that's where we
One
met.
Log,
Okay.
Yep.
Oh yeah, maybe through Shelby.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
Shout
One
out to
Log-
Shelby, Garden
Shout out
Rebels.
to Shelby.
Yeah.
Shout out to One Log. One Log's like a tourist spot right there on the 101, right in the famous little nook where Reagan the River has gone down for 30 plus years.
Yeah, super amazing location. Love my partners down there. We've kind of gone different paths over the years, but I, ran operations there, built out the nursery, partnered with Cookies, built out the Cookies genetic library, and then, basically reached a point in my kind of cultivation career, if you will, where I wanted to focus more on working with the plants and less on that corporate model of meetings and everything else,
Right.
Which I was really getting sucked into a lot. And I had an opportunity to come work with Jason.
That's great.
And I was like, hey, let's do it, And so, we were able to partner and kind of build out some operations over the last few years, which has been a real challenge just with the changing climate in the industry.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I'm just, like I said, just learning and adapting and evolving, and I don't think this is like the end all be all for me. I'd love to, one day get an even fancier greenhouse.
Oh yeah.
But I really think that just my progression in cultivation has been upward, just through all my experiences, and I'm super thankful for everything, all the relationships I've made, all the facilities I've been to, all the people I get to meet and talk to. I mean, it's really been it's been amazing.
It's amazing what this industry does for and to people, and something that you just said really struck me, that you wanted to get back to the plant and away from the corporate model and focusing all your energy on the business and the catalogs and all these sort of things. And I feel like we've kind of touched on this before with some other folks, but true cultivation has lost a lot of the best and most influential talent in the plant touching world, because that side of the corporate model starts to consume them. And as you grow your farm, as you grow your reputation, it's a natural pull into the office to have to manage more.
Sure.
And, oh, well, hey, I'm not going to go set these drip emitters, I need you to do it. And it just, like, one step at a time, slowly detaches a lot of the most passionate and amazing cultivators in the world from the plant. And it's really encouraging that you kind of chose the other way. You're like, no, this is what makes me tick. This is where my passion lies. I connect to the plant in a different way than I connect to the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
To me, that's always was my passion with the plant. And, I moved a different direction into like the soils and promotion and stuff like that. But I still grow at home because I have that connection and I can't break it. So it speaks to me when somebody has that and chooses that as the path. And it makes me wonder, what are the things in that realm that are really driving you the hardest now? Is it the genetics? Is it breeding? Are you guys doing your own breeding? I know Jason does a lot of his breeding up at Ridgeline. What's the passion kind of focusing down towards for you right now?
I think for me, and we talked about it a little earlier, is, building, not that I'm trying to be famous or Jason and I are trying to be, the biggest brand in the world, but, having people identify with our product and seek out our product and, really just kind of change the consumers, the way they view cannabis. I feel like genetics play a huge role. I think that everyone should really be, focusing on in-house strains. And Jason's been working closely with his father to get a couple new crosses out there. I actually have about a half dozen seeds that I recently popped that I'll take clones off of and pheno them out and probably just do 6 personal massive outdoors just to
Get the feel.
Yeah, and freeze them and make some hash or something. But yeah, I think what excites me the most is just progressing and like really just trying to better my own cultivation practices and grow something unique, something that people enjoy. You know, we entered some of the product into the Emerald Cup and most recently the ZA Olympics. And, you know, the ZA Olympics is mainly indoor cultivators, and we made it through, you know, over 100 entries into the next round of 27.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, so I feel like that speaks like real volumes just as to the quality that we're able to produce here in the mixed light setting.
Especially if you're comparing to indoor, to be able to capture those colors, that brightness, that freshness that's going to allow you to stand with indoor in an analytical setting like that, you know, where it's all indoor, and an outdoor or mixed light could easily just not match up with the group perception, so to speak. So to be able to transcend that boundary and make it through that cut, that's incredibly impressive.
Tell us a little bit more about this competition too, because I'm not really familiar. I would imagine a lot of our subscribers and listeners aren't either. Is it a California thing? Is it beyond?
I think it's now beyond, but Green Wolf Collective down in Los Angeles puts it on. Jason actually has some product in their stores, some of his greenhouse product. I can't say if this is the second or third year of it running, but it's a relatively new competition. Again, mainly indoor cultivation. You know, we basically submitted, I think it was 56 grams, which are then given out to judges. You know, some of the biggest names in the industry: Burner, Champelli, Blackleaf, Doja Pack, like all the big guys, you know.
Awesome.
And all blind, of course, so unlabeled jars. And then the judges, you know, choose the top ones and submit them. And yeah, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago, they basically released, you know, the competitors who made it to the next round. And it's some of the biggest names in cultivation: Seed Junkie, Wizard Trees, Blackleaf. Again, mainly indoor cultivators. I think all indoor cultivators. I can't say 100%. I just, you know, I'm not sure what they submitted.
There's a chance you may be the standalone.
We may be.
There, though.
Yeah, no.
That's great.
And I mean, so that just alone was just like, and I've never really entered the competitions. You know, Jason has won a few Emerald Cups. He's been about it. And I've just been mainly focused on, I mean, we're producing over 2,000 pounds here a year. So that's like pretty significant. We got a business to run.
It keeps you busy.
Yeah. But, I mean, it was exciting, honestly. Just like, you know, when he called me and he was like, hey, we made it through to the next round, I was just like, our product, like over 100 competitors, like that's like crazy.
Yeah.
And that excites me too. Like, I mean, for so long, I've just been growing ganja and selling pounds, and it just turns into this, you know, and forever it's like, you don't want to put your name on anything. And, you know, the fact that we're able to put Ridgeline behind it, and I have affiliation through Rising Source, and people know that it's our flower, is just like super cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember I actually I was with him that day. I ran into him while he was on the phone with you, actually, as he was pulling up, and he was giving you the news, and you guys were talking about it, and he's, smile ear to ear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to feel good. I mean, that's an incredible feat to accomplish, especially when you're standing against, you know, indoor growers, and you're dealing with a different environment, a different technique and style over here.
Yeah, and I don't want to misspeak about the competition, the way they have it set up, but I believe the ZA Olympics, we will submit another round of samples, and this one's really cool because they make those boxes available to the public. So the public will be able to go buy, I think I said 27 or 28 of these finalists product, and they'll be able to have this like amazing variety of some of the best cultivators all in one box, and then they get to submit their, feedback.
That's incredible. And they weren't given the opportunity to do that when there was 100 initial.
No, not 100
This
initial.
is just now that it's narrowed down.
Yeah, and I think they're kind of evolving the competition on the fly,
Sure.
just because it's evolving. I see they have one in Michigan now. They have one on the East Coast and stuff. I think they said sometime in May is when we're actually going to submit this next round, which we're still waiting to hear. But it's tough too, because it's like, I knew the batch we submitted, I knew that was the batch. Like,
Right.
Because we're year-round production, we're pulling down every 3 to 4 weeks, no matter what. And some are better than others. Some, for whatever reason, it's raining, it's a longer cure. Like, there's so many factors. But I knew that batch was like the best one. And so now what I'm focused on is like, is this next batch, am I able to do that with the next batch? And unlike the indoor guys, it's like, they're like, they're on their computer like, okay, my environment is dialed.
Yeah.
And here I'm like, okay, like, is it raining this week? Is it going to be 85? Like, obviously once it gets hotter, it's harder to, we have terpenes evaporating off. We have all these different factors that impact us. So, it's kind of silly because it is a competition, but it is exciting at the same time.
Well, there's validity in being recognized for your passion. You're doing it not for the recognition, but when that recognition comes alongside because of the passion, there's a lot to be said for that, and it's well deserved to get that shout out and have people be like, yeah, you are doing an amazing world-class job, and I'm amazed by the genetics and how you're able to treat them. It's well deserved to get that shout out from a kind of peer review situation, especially a public judging. And I'm interested. I'm a little confused. So you set this initial sample, and now the next round, it's a whole new round of samples.
Whole new round of samples.
Wow.
You don't even have
that's
to.
an interesting little
You don't
twist
have to
there,
submit the same strain, the same batch. It's like, it's up to the competitor.
Wow, it's really just testing the grower's skills and what they.
And that's what's cool, because if there's another podcast I listen to, and I will give these guys a shout out because I think they're doing a great job. First Smoke of the Day.
Oh yeah.
Sure. If you haven't listened to them, check them out. A lot of the guys, talk about this all Olympics, and they're just smokers. Like, they're really passionate about smoking good weed, and it's true. It's like, you might have your coveted strain over here that's just like your baby, no one else has, but the batch you produce on this one isn't quite as good as this batch of whatever it may be, something different that maybe is not as exciting to you. So it's like, I feel like it's kind of like this interesting, you really have the ability to put your best product out there. And we obviously don't want to submit a batch that's 3 months old, even though I think it would still be good.
It would probably taste better and smoke better, but is it going to match those initial impressions,
Exactly.
that bright, fresh, terpy smell? Like you said, you start to lose those terps immediately, or even in a hot sunny day when it's growing, those VOCs just poof.
And it's hard to store weed for 3, 4, 5 months, and that's a big problem with a lot of the stuff on the shelf. If it's just been, by the time it gets to the shelf, it's been sitting for so long. So, but yeah, the competition is really exciting. We're obviously going to try to have like a presence as Ridgeline down there. Any and all marketing, I feel like, is good publicity.
Oh yeah.
And that's the largest cannabis market right now in the United States. I mean, we'll see what happens with the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey and stuff as it comes on, but LA has long been just a powerhouse market.
Yeah.
It really is just packed filled with cannabis connoisseurs,
aficionados, and just consumers in general. And
Right.
the cool thing that strikes me about it at the LA Consumption Network is the variety of consumers. You have to appeal to dozens of different mindsets of how they interpret cannabis, how they relate to cannabis, the terpenes they want to smoke, the type they're going to smoke, whether they're smoking blunts, smoking bongs, dabbing, live resin. There's just such a huge variety of consumers down there. It's really interesting to me that this competition is not only testing the cultivator, but it's testing the cultivator's judgment on what to submit. And that's really unique.
Yeah, no, definitely.
For listeners that want to follow this competition, what's a good place for them to check it out online as far as Instagram, social media?
I'm pretty sure on Instagram it's at Zawlympics.
That's ZAWL. Is that how it's spelled, or?
I'm not even going to try to spell it, but
Good.
Yeah, Zawlympics put on by Green Wolf LA.
Gotcha.
Green Wolf has a couple dispensaries down in LA area. I think Bel Air. I can't remember where the other one is, but they should be pretty easy to find.
Right on.
And like all these big indoor cultivators are like involved in the competition. People are posting about it. You can go to my page at Rising Source. I made a post about it. But yeah, just super exciting. Obviously, the Emerald Cup's been a big one for us up here forever.
Sure.
This will be the first year that we submitted some entries of mixed light. So interested to see like exactly how that unfolds. You know, I think they moved the competition back up north this year, if I'm not mistaken, which I think is a
Correct.
good thing for us,
Yep.
just because, you know, Northern California kind of is the stronghold,
Sure.
especially for the Emerald Cup. But I mean, it's interesting how this culture has changed. You know, you guys were just talking about like the LA culture, and you know, for me, you know, cannabis culture is this, like being on the farm and like working with the plants and smoking joints and being outside. But I'm realizing now that the culture has, you know, changed a lot.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people who don't have the ability to go to farms, and now they go to dispensaries, and you know, they are connoisseurs.
Absolutely.
And they're seeking out the best product. And you know, I think that's a goal of both Jason and mine, is that hopefully we can, you know, educate the consumer and change kind of, you know, the consumer's, you know, perspective and choice when they go into the dispensary. Because I think that sun-grown, mixed light, indoor, I think they all have their place, but I definitely don't think that sun-grown is inferior product.
I completely agree, and it's a really huge challenge in the marketplace to get the consumers to see that.
And that's something I feel like the Emerald Cup really pulled off well by going down to Southern California and doing that event. Was that, you know, the focus down there was highly around sun-grown.
Totally.
You know, and that's something that, you know, like you said, in Southern California, it's always been about that super bright green, you know, just, you know, full on indoor. A lot of times, you know, years back, chemi. You know, people loved chemi weed.
Totally.
They weren't interested, even if you mentioned it was
I still do.
organic. And yeah, you know. So to bring that into that market and to show people and educate people that there's a beauty in actual organic sun-grown, and it's coming from these hills, you know.
And
Yeah.
I love that the award ceremony being down there, and then who won the awards was an organic evolution. They were planning all this stuff long before they knew who was winning. And I'm lucky enough to have been an Emerald Cup judge in the cartridge category last year, and again this year. Get our kits next week, so that's super exciting. But they didn't know when they decided to put this, you know, bougie kind of LA, you know, Academy Awards sort of Oscar vibe party on at the Montalban Theater. They didn't know that it was going to be sun-grown that basically swept a ton of the categories, including best overall. So that was really intriguing to me, to be down there and see these awards being announced in real time, and sun grower after sun grower after sun grower from Humboldt and Sonoma and Northern California in general just kept storming the stage with the biggest smiles. And it warms the heart to see that was the path it took. And you know, have Woody Harrelson up there opening the Woods dispensary in real time, focusing on the sun grown. It's definitely a breath of fresh air to provide that access and education to the consumer.
That was something that the grow-off competition has also always done. You know, they've always just had a lot of their top placers have been, you know, Emerald Triangle, sun-grown farmers, just, you know, kind of just constantly in there and putting out their best products out there. And that's all, you know, lab science data-based. You know, you're winning on THC and terps.
Yeah.
You know, these competitions are incredible. I mean, obviously, they're a lot of fun. They're exciting. You know, there's bragging rights and there's everything. I always feel like for the growers themselves, it's more of a battery recharger. You know, with everything that you got going on, and you're having to, to deal with just to stay in the game, to stay relevant, and to stay in business. You know, like that. You guys deserve these pats on the back, and to kind of keep that passion going. You know what I mean? It's been rough out there these last few years. You know, growers are getting beat up.
I appreciate you saying that, and I think about that a lot because, you know, obviously the regulations, the business, everything is just incredibly challenging. I mean, we're a relatively small business. You know, we run a very light crew here. You know, I do all the metric myself. Like, I'm doing all the compliance. Like, I'm trying to work with the plant as much as possible. But, you know, even in this setting, like, as cultivators, we're basically mitigating issues all the time. We try to mitigate them before they arise, but that's what we're doing. We're doing damage control. I mean, like, these are living organisms, plants, that need different things, just like humans, food, water. And, you know, I'd say that we're always chasing that perfect run, you know, and that kind of translates into this competition. What do we produce to the best of our ability and submitted it for this competition? But really, there's no such thing as a perfect run. There's always issues. There's never, like, you know, and especially in this setting because it's just always changing. So yeah, I think that, like, you know, like I said, this is the first competition I've entered, but it's really kind of exciting, and it did give me a boost. Didn't last for that long, I must say, but it gave me a boost because I was just so stoked that we made it through that preliminary round.
Yeah. And I'm really intrigued on the criteria on which they're judging the Zolo Olympics, you know, because like you said, the grow off is all science. It's not even like, there's no like, oh, it smells good, it tastes good. There is no consumption associated at all with the judging for grow off. Right. Emerald Cup, it's predominantly, you know, consumption that dictates the winners. So I think it's really cool to enter a lot of these different competitions and see how you measure up in different categories through different criteria, and you know, how does it appeal to the customer in different ways? All right, well, marketing these days, a lot of it, what does the jar say? What's your terp counts? What are your THC counts? What are your CBD counts? People are looking at those numbers to make their choices and never having an opportunity to smell or taste before they make that purchase. Mm-hmm. So it's really, I don't know, it's cool to see the evolution of the cannabis competition start to come from different angles and give growers an opportunity to test their mettle in all of these different ways. Yeah,
I agree. You know, I think one of the big ones now is with such large production nationally, but in California, you know, I think a lot of these facilities are cutting some important corners, especially with the drying and curing process. Maybe even all of it. Yeah, they're like, we got to chop it day 56. It only hits our schedule. We can get in one more run.
Mediums, nutrients, across the board.
So what's so important is to really, you know, and I think that's one thing that Jason has taught me really well, is the drying and curing process can literally make or break a crop.
Sure.
So we're trying to hit that. I'm trying to hit that 14-day dry. You know, I'm basically, you know, running, you know, the 60 or 65% humidity along with temperature.
You're running 60-60.
Slow and cold.
Okay.
Yeah. And that, for me, I believe is translating to that finished product. You know, a lot of these guys are chasing that white ash and all this this stuff, which I don't really think translates as much to flush as it does to drying and curing.
I completely and wholeheartedly agree, and I think that's a commonly overlooked or mistakenly viewed concept. People are like, oh, it just didn't flush well, it's burning black and charcoaly. Well, no, it was flushed perfectly, it just dried in 4 days, and then ended up in a jar with all this moisture trapped inside the tissue because it didn't go through that slow release, and because it got too warm and didn't keep that nice cool temperature to trap those VOCs and allow them to kind of internalize and preserve.
Definitely. Yeah, and so, like, you know, I'm just, like I've been saying throughout this conversation, I'm just trying to dial in my procedures and adapt and change and try to just grow the best ganja possible. Like, that is primarily my goal. Obviously, I have other responsibilities to run a business, provide for my workers, make sure our bills are covered. But
And
like,
a family, you got
and the
children, and
family,
that's a
we just bought
juggle.
our first house. Super excited about that.
Yes,
Thank
good
you.
for you.
Thank you.
I
Gonna
can't
be
believe
neighbors
your
with
child
Jason.
is 8.
I know.
Because I remember, shortly, right around the time that she or he, boy, right?
She, Olivia.
She was born.
That's my oldest daughter's name
too.
as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember you posted that picture of your child with the Royal Grown onesie on.
Oh, that was
in the
Maverick.
greenhouse.
That was Maverick.
That was Maverick.
That was the second one.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I love that picture. That's always been
yeah.
one of my favorites. I mean, just
Yeah,
such
no.
a pure innocence on their face, standing in the greenhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, no, I mean, my children have basically grown up around the plants their entire lives. Olivia, I was kind of a single father with Olivia, and now times have changed and it's not as accepted for her to be here, just
Sure.
because the regulations and but I mean, she's been in the garden with me since the beginning. She actually like understands a lot about plant morphology and how to grow plants and stuff, which I think is really important. I know that with the regulation, it's people really aren't supposed to be handling it unless they're over 21. But just having her outside, working in the veggie garden, having exposure to, the natural environment, I feel like is so important. So when the time is right and she's old enough, I feel like she'll have more exposure in the industry.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I love my kids, and I'm just super thankful that I've been able to create a life around this and provide for them. It's just,
Yeah.
I get caught up a lot in the day-to-day struggles, as we all do, and then when I have time to reflect, I'm like, man, I'm just so thankful that like I'm here doing what I love. My kids are healthy. It's just, there's so much to be thankful for. So
Right on.
yeah.
It's a
Well,
lot
I
of
will
blessings.
say, I not just maybe it's not maybe a perfect way to judge, but you're pretty active on social media, Rising Source on Instagram, and what I've always thought is that for as active as you are in your posts, your greenhouses always look on point, right? And I've noticed, other growers, you'll see those lapses in posts, and I always got to kind of wonder, okay, this run is maybe not turning out so great. Where with you, for as consistent as you're posting, things always look completely perfect and on point. I know that's
Thank you.
probably not always right. Your Instagram's not going to catch all those little things that are going on that you're dealing with, but yeah, you always, you're showing on social media is always fun to follow because they always look just incredible.
Yeah, no, I got to give Royal Gold a shout out there, because I feel like a lot of our consistency comes from obviously our genetics, but also like our media. We're running Tupper and all our greenhouses. It just allows for uniformity and feed and Canopy and everything. It's like, it's tough because when you get to scale, and we're not at great scale, but we're at 10,000 square feet here. Last year we ran close to 70,000 square feet, not in the same setting, but it's really important to just be consistent from one plant to the next. And that's what I try to kind of instill in the people I work with, is we want to treat every plant as an individual, because it is, but we want to create consistency and uniformity in our SOPs.
Yeah.
We can't just be treating one plant, feeding it something else. We kind of gotta, and that's how you're able to scale up an operation, and so the Tupper's been awesome for us, because we basically, we go from transplant in 5-inch pot into these 3 gallons, and we're feeding, basically high EC all the way through week 5, 6, and then we start to taper.
Okay, so it's a lean into the flush as opposed to like push it, drain it.
Yeah, we taper down, and then we do a straight water flush, probably for the last 5 to 7 days, depending.
Okay.
And that's kind of another reason why I've been going down to the 3-gallon pot. And, a lot of my friends who run some big facilities indoor, and one specifically in the mixed light world, I'm kind of seeing them go down in size, one, to allow for faster drybacks, but two, I'm actually able to force water through the media and truly flush it. Because when I was in the 7 gallons, I could dump a bunch of water in it, but they wouldn't dry out for like 10 days.
And that's a huge challenge in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, this time of year, you just can't do that, because if you try to, if you waterlog these pots, at the end of flower, you're going to have mold issues.
Yeah, you're going to have damping off and all sorts of funk potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been this progression: 7 gallons, 5 gallons, 3 gallons. And I'm happy with the 3 gallons now. I was just at a 90,000 square foot facility, all rolling benches, all mixed light. They were down into 2 gallons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it just goes back to what we've been talking about of, adapting and changing and doing what works for you, and, listening to the plants,
Yep. Plants and the environment.
Plants in the environment. That's what it's
It's
about.
everything.
Man, thanks for sharing all of this insight, because, when you're inundated in the industry and we see these sort of things and going from farm to farm to farm, it all starts to make sense, and it's what we do every day. So it doesn't seem so novel or far out there of these concepts, but a lot of folks at home who don't have that inundation in the industry that we do, being lucky enough to be in Northern California, a lot of these concepts may be new to them or just kind of coming across their radar. The whole idea of forcing those drybacks, the crop steering methods, and really trying to maintain consistency and quality in all of your components to get that end product. It's easy to miss. It's easy to fall into these trappings of super soils or build your own, or I just want to add water only, I don't want control. But the more you see the award-winning, top quality cultivators, even people doing permaculture, living soils, things like that, they are constantly tweaking and crafting based on the environment, based on the day, based on the unique challenges that are coming around the corner at every curve, controlling their inputs, controlling their, SOPs, but having enough flexibility to bend with the crop. And
Yeah.
I think it's really inspirational. And I'm really excited to kind of walk around and see some of the genetics, see what's going on here.
Definitely.
We'll take you, the listener, the viewer, kind of through some of the greenhouses and get it, from the horse's mouth, how things are functioning for this crop this time around, and what you may be able to find in a jar on Ridgeline or Rising Source Cannabis in the future at your local dispensary.
Yeah, I'd like to give a big shout out to Sylvandale's Garden Supply Nursery here in
Yes.
Southern Humboldt, old school. They've been around and providing for the community for many, many years. Yes, this is where Oliver got his royal gold from. Thanks for stocking us and providing the goods to the people of Southern Humboldt. We appreciate you, Sylvandale's and the fam.
Thanks, Doug. We appreciate you.
Dougie.
Yeah, Doug.
So thanks for checking out this episode of Royal Grown Radio. We're going to pack up, walk around, tour the greenhouse, get a little more information, touch some plants, smell some plants, take you on the tour with us on the next episode of Royal Grown Radio.
Hey, this is Oliver at Rising Source. You can find me on Instagram at Rising Source. You're listening to Royal Grown Radio.